on time 11:08, dispatch at 4.
This morning we have with us Lieutenant Tim Ursin, retired New Orleans Fire Lieutenant, who was at the scene of the Howard Johnson incident involving Mark Essex. And he's going to explain some of the details of that event and his career through New Orleans Fire Department. To start off, Tim, where were you raised? What part of town?
I lived in Gentilly, down around Broad and St. Bernard.
Okay. What schools did you attend?
Grammar schools, I went to McDonald 9, and then then I went to Our Lady of Sacred Heart, and then from there I went to St. Aloysius High School.
Okay.
And then Nicholls State College.
Oh, no kidding. You're a college man.
Yeah.
All right. How siblings have a household growing up? What was that?
I had three, myself and two brothers. One's passed since, and I got one brother still alive. My dad was an electrician for the Port of Commissions, Dr. Wood. My mother was, she worked, some part-time teaching and just a homemaker.
Years ago, yeah. I'm stepping into the 21st century.
Yeah. I came out and that was around, 63, I think it was. And, I worked for I worked for New Orleans Electric Supply up on Chapatula Street. And my dad had got me that job. And I worked for about a year, and then I decided, to join the fire department. After I got married, my father-in-law was a fireman, so he kind of helped me get on. And I decided to.
Your father-in-law was, what was his name?
Charlie Ray, Charles Frank Ray.
Okay, what company was he on?
He was on Engine 1.
So an old Engine 1 on Annunciation?
Annunciation, yeah.
Okay.
Annunciation Race, yeah.
Yeah, for people that don't know, the building is now renovated, and last it was a restaurant. That was converted, yeah, kind of a niche restaurant out there. That was prior to merging Engine 1 and 23 on Magazine and 7th, where they are now as the task force in the 90s. So you were working in the electrical business at the New Orleans Electric.
Mm-hmm.
Then directly you went to NOFD following that?
Yeah, well, no, not really. Then I started working for a friend of mine who had a sporting goods business in New Orleans East.
Okay.
Benny Lito.
Okay, yeah. He was also a fireman, wasn't he?
No, his son was a fireman.
Okay.
Little Benny.
You
think of Little Benny?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he was a fireman. I worked for him until about 82.
Okay.
And then I decided to start my own charter fishing business. I wanted to be, on my own.
On the boss.
Yeah, and I've done that all my life. My brother and I used to hunt and fish together, so I felt it was a natural.
Were either of your brothers on fire department, police department?
No.
They were private sector.
Yeah.
All right. What was your second job once you got on the fire department?
I had a couple of second jobs. We did some cleaning of filters for commercial businesses. Building filters and cleaning them. And then I did whatever work I could do on the side for myself. So that basically fire department takes up a lot of your time. At the time we were on a different schedule than we ended up. We were on a 5-day a week, and then 5 nights, and then it was 2 days off for 5 days and 3 days off after 5 nights. So you were in the firehouse a lot. So you didn't, you only had that time during the day. And then when we went later on, we went a 24-48 schedule, which is mostly what everybody is now. So that would give you a little bit more time.
Flexibility, yeah. That had to be next to impossible trying to schedule a day and night transition around another job, much less a family. So if you could walk us through what the hiring process was in those days. You got married, your father-in-law suggested that you go in the fire department, kind of offered some guidance in that. What was the process, the selection process grading back then? If you can.
Well, basically back then, if you had somebody on the department that could recommend you, it went a long way as to whether you get on.
Okay.
They would hire you, you didn't have to take a test or anything. Well, you did, you had to take a civil service test, okay? Which was
exam.
Which was just a basic fundamental exam. It was nothing. There was nothing different about it than a school test, you know.
Right.
And then if they accepted that, then probably it would take you about, depending on, you know, who was trying to get you on, how fast you got on.
Okay.
And I got on fairly quick.
Was there much in the way back then of physical fitness standard or testing, agility testing, all the requirements beforehand, pre-employment?
They had, well, they did have training school, but the way they did the training school then is that if you came on a job, they would send certain companies every month to the training school, okay, certain companies. You know, they didn't just pick everybody to go, from one guy from each company in the district to go to training school. They just pick up. And if you were detailed, which, you know, if you were sent to another engine house other than your own, if they sent a guy and you went with that company, then you went to training school. But if you didn't get on that company and yours went, you didn't go. If your original company went, so you didn't go. So I think the first, I didn't see a training school until about a year and a half after I was on the job. I have to be detailed to a company that went to the training school.
A year and a half. That's certainly.
And I tell you what, I learned on the job, and it is a great way to learn on the job. But there's a lot of not so good things about that. You know what I'm saying?
I can imagine. Yeah, totally for me. When we came on, it was 20 weeks, and adding the medical to it. But that was certainly very structured, very regimented.
Right.
So I think we had different experiences in that regard coming on.
Not to cut you off, but I remember one time I was on, and when I was on about maybe 2 months. And before I realized there was a Scott air pack on the pump, an air apparatus that you could breathe in the smoke, you know. And
Cutting edge. What do you think of next?
What's that for, Cap? Don't even think about it, because if you use that, you aren't
not fit for this job.
You're not fit for this job. So what? We just eat all the smoke and don't worry about it, you know.
Yeah, I've heard of people using cigars or whatever as an air filter.
My captain used one.
Yeah.
One of my captains, and that's no lie.
The Cuban breathing apparatus. Pre-embargo. So you get assigned, what was your first company assignment, first house that you were placed in?
I originally went into engine 16 on 30.
Old 16.
Old 16.
Prior to the 16, engine 5, and ladder 8 on Martin Luther King and Rampart in their present quarters.
Right.
Those were the only two companies in quarters at that time? Was there a
It was 16 and truck 8.
16, okay. Going, so at that time you integrated and you showed up for work your first day, and that's that. You're just kind of, I don't want to say thrown to the wolves, but given a riding assignment or a seat, well, not even a seating assignment back then, hanging tailboard, riding on a tailboard.
My first day didn't go like that too good. What happened is we had received orders to, first day on the job, to report to the chief's quarters, no clothes. I mean, no uniform, no turnout clothes, just show up. So I showed up, and another guy came, this other guy, Charlie Huxley, and my son. So we come for the assignment. So, Chief, who you got? So we were, told him, and he said, well, okay, y'all both assigned to engine 16. We both were assigned to the 2nd platoon on engine 16. So we go over there, nobody's in the engine house. Vacant. Go upstairs, nobody's upstairs. Go in the backyard, nobody's in the yard. Where the firemen? The pumps are there, the truck's there, nobody's. Oh, we wait. 20 minutes, walk out the front, look around down the street. oh, there's a fireman, was walking down the street. Kind of, rotund,
Well,
not really in good shape, walking shape or crawling, whatever you want to call it. So he comes in, what do you guys want? Oh, excuse me, we've been assigned here. Okay, all right, just go in the back and, go get some fire clothes out the back locker back there. Take anyone you want. Y'all gonna use other guys' clothes till you get yours. Okay. Well, here comes another fireman, and another fireman from down the block. Come to find out, they're gonna
Staff meeting.
Yeah, but let me tell you something, I got to say this, when the bell went off,
Yeah.
there was no nonsense.
Work hard, play hard.
You did your job, and they made sure you did.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that we try to convey to people, especially younger people on the job now, just night and day difference. And, it's not just a cliche, the Iron Man and wooden ladders expression. Not having a roof on an apparatus, ride on a tailboard, and just all the different turnout gear that was rudimentary at best. And, speaking of that, you had to buy all your own gear back then at the time. And you remember what you paid for any of that, or I know they offered
Well,
like
back then it was
deduction.
ridiculous, you know what I mean? But
Yeah,
when you're making $345 a month,
yeah.
anything's ridiculous, if you have to buy it. So, but the thing with the fire department was what I looked at more than anything was my father impressed upon me. He said it's not the salary. He said the salary's there. He said, but it's the pension. You got to look at security. That's the way he made it look.
Yeah, the long term.
In the long term, and he was right. He was right. He passed away. He passed away like a week before I was shot. So my wife had a double whammy.
When it rains, it pours.
Right.
So you've made permanent status as a firefighter. You're off probation. What was your first permanently assigned company?
I stayed at Engine 16.
Yeah, you got to stay.
I stayed, and then a couple of years, 3 years later, I got promoted. 3 or 4 years later, I got promoted to operator. I stayed on 16, but I changed platoons. I was on the second. When I got promoted to operator, I went on the first. But I didn't leave the engine house. And I knew the apparatus. That's why they keep you there.
Exactly.
When you learn one apparatus, they don't want to be putting you somewhere else. So
Sure.
hopefully that's what they thought.
Right, at least know the streets,
Right.
know the construction.
And that's the main thing, the streets, yeah.
Yeah, it's a difficult job as a floating operator.
I tell you what, if the pay grade would have went up for operators every year, I'd have stayed an operator. I wouldn't have went for lieutenant.
Other
But
guys
he had
feel
to
that
get
way.
promoted to make money.
Yeah, it's hard to give up that seat.
That's right. I love that operator's job.
It's also a thinking man's position,
Yeah.
as far as especially back then, hydraulics and
Right.
it's a bit of a challenge to that, and a dying art form now, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
With automation and I don't think there's as much emphasis today on that as there used to be. It's more of a driver than the apparatus engineer that we kind of strive to be back then, at least. All right, so you stayed at Engine 16, you made operator there. And that's still, at that time, still in the old quarters on failure,
Right.
old 16. And then you made lieutenant. How long were you on the job when you made lieutenant?
Let's see, about 7.5 years.
That's moving at a really good pace. For those that don't know, to go from probationary firefighter all the way through into hit lieutenant that early in the game,
Right.
and it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to pass. I passed 27 out of 105, something like that. And it took about, I think it was like, I want to say 6 months to get promoted.
Okay.
But, they did slow promotion because money-wise,
Sure.
the budget was always,
Sure.
low, so.
With that, now at that time, you make lieutenant, pretty much you're floating around, but did you at least have a nominal company that you were assigned to on paper, or was it just assigned to a district? How did they work it back in those days?
Well, when I first got promoted, there was no openings in the district, in my district, so they couldn't promote me there, so they sent me to Engine 8.
Okay.
And I stayed at Engine 8 for my 1-year probation.
Okay.
And I wanted to be in the commercial area. That's a strictly residential area.
Sure.
And I called the chief, Savella, and I asked him, I said, Chief, are there any openings in the second district? And he told me, he says, not at this time. I said, well, as soon as you get an opening, I'd appreciate it if you'd consider me for it. He said, don't worry, if you get an opening, I'll let you know. So about, I'm gonna say maybe 3 weeks later, he calls me. He said, where you wanna go? Like that. I said, what do you mean? He said, we're gonna give you an engine house. Where you wanna go? You wanna go to engine 14? And then, or you wanna go to flying squad? Well, at the time, the flying squad was not at engine 14, it was in Central Station.
Okay.
So I said, no, I don't want to go to Central Station. I said, no, I want engine 14, because I had spent a little time in engine 14 when I was detailed a lot, and I knew all the guys, so he said, when your probation's up in 2 weeks, you will be getting a call, you'll be assigned to engine 14. So sure enough, the day after my probation was up, I got out the call. I reported to engine 14 on the next tour.
Outstanding.
That's when I was a float lieutenant.
Okay. Yeah, for those that aren't aware of it, Engine 14 is in the CBD, nestled in between Tulane and Charity Hospital on the corner of Cleveland and Robertson. All right, so that gets us to some of the other larger events or more historic or memorable things, whether it was conflagrations or whatever, in your time leading up to making lieutenant. You worked Hurricane Camille, that would have been 1969?
Yeah, I was on duty for Hurricane Camille. We made 3 rolls during the hurricane. Mostly it was the transformers on light poles were going off. You know how that does in the storm. You get all that wind and it just rags those lines up and they pop all over the place with the oil everywhere,
Yeah.
So we didn't do anything but just stand off, just to try to keep anybody. But there was nobody on the street.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We were the only clowns on the street. So.
The only ones that didn't have the sense to stay indoors. Stay indoors anyway.
They should have been arrested,
Yeah,
if they go out.
Exactly. Curfew, we can't leave floors. Any of the other larger, whether it's working fires or anything that stick out in your mind in your time?
The worst one I think that I had made was a warehouse on Chapatula Street, and I think we had talked about that. It was we got in there and the fire. I mean, it was hot and it was raging, and nobody had amp packs on because nobody wanted to use them. You know what I'm saying? And the captain, I was telling you with the cigar, he was the only one breathing right because he had this cigar in his mouth. And he used to smoke all the time. You got any more? It was,
Exactly.
But that never worked out. So we were on our knees, man. We were down low and the smoke was over our head. And I kept looking in the back, man. And I'm saying to myself, man, what is that burning? I couldn't figure it out. I saw every color in the rainbow. I saw red, yellow, blue, orange, green. And come to find out, it was a warehouse full of Mardi Gras beads. It was plastics, man. You talk
And
about.
who knows what type of
I could hardly
plastics.
breathe when I walked out of there, man. I mean, it was horrible. It was terrible. And then I made a fire on another one was it was on Magazine Street. It was what's the name of that place? The meat packing plant, I think it was on Magazine. They made bologna and stuff like
Shots?
that.
Hot dog company?
No.
Audemars?
It was one of the old buildings.
Okay.
I get up in there, we walk through the door. We hit this one door and we stopped. We couldn't breathe. As soon as we hit the door, we couldn't take a breath. Ammonia. All the, the ammonia to keep everything
For
going.
refrigeration.
It was all leaking in there. Man, and it was burning like crazy. And I'm telling you what, that was an experience. When you go to take a breath, you could not even get it, anything.
No big.
We turned around and got out of there, man. I mean, it's
Fortunately, I don't know what that's like, so.
Believe me, when you get around
Doesn't
home,
sound pleasant.
try to take a breath in and you find out.
Good Lord. That obviously was a pretty large fire at the time.
Right.
Conflagration.
Now, I tell you, one more, sure. I had, this is starting to bring back a lot of stuff.
Exactly, that's what we're hoping for.
We made a school up around St. Charles. It was 3 stories, and then below they had trailers. And between the trailers, they had roofing. It was the plastic corrugated or fiberglass or whatever.
Okay.
We had just, we used to wear aluminum helmets with the long back. I forget what they call
Karen
it.
Senator.
That's it, the center. And they had just installed a month before these new motorcycle type helmets with the flip down yellow shields on.
The federal.
We had the first ones, okay? I get in that find, I got a rookie firefighter. I was a lieutenant at the time. We had a rookie firefighter with me. And I told him the stuff, the plastic was burning. You know, it was hot. And well, we were like right looking at it. It was right there. I told him, I said, look, don't open that thing wide open. Put it on a fine mist and then walk towards it. Because it'll flash on you if you don't. So I said, I'll be right back. I turned around and go get some, and he pulled it all the way. I guess he couldn't control it. He pulled it all the way, and it hit that roof. The roof exploded.
Okay.
I turned around when it did, and a hunk of plastic hit that face shield right here and melted all over that face shield. I don't have that helmet on. I don't have that helmet on. I lose my eyesight.
Yeah.
But then I would have got shot.
Good God.
You're talking about the hidden dangers are everywhere.
Yeah.
You just got to there's no way you can get away from a lot of it, but you got to be extremely careful.
See what I'm saying? I'd rather be lucky than good any day.
Yeah.
You know?
I came down there and stair head first. You know, getting away from background.
Commercial, yeah, absolutely. All right, so that pretty much gets us up to what I would refer to as V-Day,
Mm-hmm.
and that being the, at that time, Howard Johnson Hotel. It's now a Holiday Inn, the large, I think it's a clarinet on the side of it. Is that LaSalle Street, if I'm not mistaken? And that gets us to the Mark Essex sniper incident. For those that have not heard of it, look that one up. That was certainly a dark chapter in New Orleans history. Can you take us through that day? What that tour started out like, what the incident was like?
I want to say something first before it starts out.
Please.
All right. If you don't think that things are just meant for you, you're wrong. And I'm going to tell you exactly why I know. The day that morning started off, okay, I was floating lieutenant at the time. Every tour since I was at Engine 14, I was detailed to another engine house to take over. I wasn't at 14. This particular morning I came in and there was no assignments, no details. Okay, so I was an extra man. I was old.
Okay.
They called me old. Okay,
Sure.
so I was no more than a high-paid firefighter
Sure.
at the time. Okay, so that's fine. You know, I didn't mind staying at my engine house. I hadn't been in it since I got assigned.
Keep hearing about this place. I might check it out someday.
I got more. I was there more before I was a lieutenant than I was at.
Yeah.
So, you know, I didn't go, so it was getting around 10:30, Sunday morning, January 7th, 1973. It was a little misty outside, it was a little cool, you know, a little cold. So, you know, I was sitting there watching TV, you know, just relaxing. Getting around 10:30, so nobody's there. I said, well, look, how about let's make up a lunch list? Since I'm old, I'll just go run and get some hamburgers down at the Burger King. Being it's Sunday, I'll go run down Canal Street and get some burgers. Yeah, Lieutenant, that's great. So they make up a list. 10 minutes or so, we get a list. So this was about 11 o'clock. So we sat there and we, you know, kind of made sure the list was all right, getting around 11:10 or something like that. So I I got the list. I said, okay, anybody want anything else? No, okay, I'm going. So I walked out, took my keys, put them in the door of my car, opened the door of the car. Jack Burkett, one of the guys who worked there, he said, Lieutenant, wait a minute. He said, let me call the restaurant down the street. He said, they might be open. I said, Jack, this is Sunday, man, and it's 10 o'clock. They're open, it's gonna be 1 o'clock. I said, wait a minute, man. He said, well, let me just call them. I said, okay. So I waited. I got back, closed the door. I stood by the door of the engine house. He gets on the phone, ring, nothing. So he turns around, he says, nah, I said, I guess they're not open yet. I said, good. I said, good, and the radio call came in front of Howard Johnson. Bam. Engine 14, and the rest of them, okay, it came in. So by this time, should have been in my car.
Yeah.
At least 3 or 4
Well,
blocks away on the way to the Burger King, okay? I'd have missed the call.
Yeah.
But as I found out when I come back, I would have went to the fire, but in a different situation, and I was put in the fire. So, I closed the door of the car, decided I'm going, you know, because this was like the month after the road center when all these people were jumping. I missed that,
Another
you know, and I said, man, we need manpower. I'm thinking to myself, manpower. So we left, we went over, we got there, we pulled up. We were only 3 blocks away. We pulled up. The truck had come in. It was setting up in the front of the building. We stopped. I went in, saw the chief, Savella. They were inside. We were by the elevator, and they got 2 cops with their guns out aiming it at the elevator, their pistols. So, and people are coming down the stairs. Okay, so I told the chief about it. I said, well, what do you want to do? You know, what are you going to do? I mean, we can't. You don't normally use the elevator, but with all the people that were in the stairway, you know, you had no other egress. You know.
Sure.
So he said, look. Cop turns around. He says, man, y'all can't use that elevator. We got a guy trapped in there with a gun, and we wait for the doors open to get him out. I said, okay, let's go. Let's get out of here. You know. So the chief said, look. Go ahead outside and see what's going on and see what you can do. I said, all right. So I went out. I looked at the truck. Nobody was on the truck. Truck was set up. The only thing, the area was still down. It wasn't lifted yet. But the truck jacks were down for stability, where, you know, you could lift the end. That was right. At Truck 8, I was in those quarters. I knew that truck like the back of my hand because we trained on it. We trained on 16 there. So I said, well, I looked up. And I seen 4 people on the balcony. They were screaming and hollering, you know, they were all panicky, you know. I said, well, where's the operator? You know, where's the operator? Couldn't find him. Truck operator, couldn't find him. They were probably like we did. They went into the building to see what was going on. So I waited a few seconds, you know, and I said, well, I know how to do it. I'm just going to wait for it. So I stood there and I put that area up.
You raised the area?
I raised it up, I laid it in, I put it in the proper way, 3 feet from the building, so that when you climb and you go, you know the drill. And
those were not self-locking dogs back then.
right.
You had to kind of know what you were doing. They weren't as forgiving and idiot-proof.
That's right. So I get up on the turntable to go, and one of the guys come running down with the thing. He had one of the belts that you lock in to the ladder with if you're going to stop, so you don't fall if you can do anything. So I told him, no, I'm not going to stop. I'm going straight up all the way. I said, I'm going to try to keep, get these people down. Okay. So then I turned to go and he hollers, well, you better take this with you. So he throws me the 1.5 inch, which is what the nozzle was on. Now this 1.5 inch line is what we always carried in high rise or higher building where you can hook up to the standpipe system. We never used their hoses because they were cloth hoses. We had canvas hoses. Our hoses could last in a burn situation longer than theirs was. And we had nozzles where you can adjust the flow. So I said, okay, give me that. So these were called donut rolls. They had a belt around them from the center to the outside, and you pull it tight, and they're rolled. Well, to carry them, you got to throw the nozzle over your shoulder and tuck the roll under your arm. Well, I did that, but apparently the belt that was on there wasn't really tight, and the thing kept, as I was going up, the weight of the nozzle swinging back and forth was tight in that roll up, and it got long, and it was touching the back of my leg and tripping it every time I went to go. It was starting to get a little aggravated, and I got to about the 7th floor, and I stopped, 7 and a half floors, and I just stopped, and I took the nozzle, just like, well, I'll show you. I took the nozzle from back here, and I put it under my chin like this to keep it from hitting me. And I reached up on the ladder like this to go, and I was holding on to the rung, and I looked up and I told him, I'm coming right now. And just as I said now, boom, I heard this loud, loud boom. And everything in front of me went like waves, like a wave of heat. And the bullet went into the nozzle. But at the time, I didn't know that. Because when I was hitting the arm, that, you know, and, and what it sounded like was somebody dropped a cherry bomb in front of my face, because everything went wavy. You know, and I was like in a daze until I looked up, saw the blood pouring out of my turnout raincoat. And when I looked up, all 4 people they went back in, you know what I mean? They were scared at one point.
Sure.
Now, I never saw the guy, or whoever did it, but I know he was to my left, slightly above me, probably 40 to 50 feet. He had me dead to rights. But that wasn't the best part. I turned around, I looked out, and I looked down, I said I was not gonna make it. I was bleeding so bad. I mean, it would just run out like it poured out of a bottle. And I figured I was just gonna pass out and fall. So what I did was I laid back on the ladder, looked out, and then I came down on my heels as fast as I could. On this ladder we had, they had a sidebar on it, and it was, thank God it was on that right side. And I grabbed it, and I used that to hold myself from falling. And I just kind of bumped myself down real quick, you know, 4 or 5 runs at a time.
Yeah.
But I was down about maybe another 30 feet, and he stepped out to shoot again. And this time he had me dead to rights, and I was right going down the ladder, and the gun jammed. The bullet that he had fired that hit this lodged up in the thing, the cartridge, and didn't eject. And the cop told me that. He said he came out, I never saw him. He came out and he wanted to fire that second shot. He said he did this and he did this and he did this, and that's how they knew it was either empty,
Right.
but they realized it was the shot because he lifted the gun and he bolted. He didn't come back down to take that shot. And that's when the 2 or 3 cops behind the truck, they started firing at me with the pistols.
Give you a little suppressing.
Right,
fire.
and
Yeah.
the bullets, I guess, zinging up there, they drove him back. They never hit him, they drove him back.
Yeah.
And he didn't get that second shot off. So I got down to about 10
Cutting
feet.
pretty close here.
Man, my pressure, I could feel my pressure was dropping so fast, and I was getting weaker, weaker, weaker. I just didn't feel like I could make it. And then when I got down to 10, about 10 feet from the turntable, Operator Huey Brown, who was operating on the truck, he came up. He was looking in, I was looking out, and he said, get on my shoulders, and I put my 2 feet on his shoulders. And he scurried down at 10 feet, and I just walked my way down, and when I hit the level, 2 of the policemen come out and hollered, jump. And I jumped, and they laid me behind the truck. And they just peeled my coat back, and when I looked like 2 pounds of ground meat. And the bullet never it wasn't a solid hit. It hit me, it just clipped me about an inch into where my crease of my elbows, took out both arteries, the radial nerve, and the radius bone. The only thing I had there was the ulna. Both arteries went. You can imagine how much blood was coming out of 2 arteries.
Yeah.
And I was doing holding my arm up the whole time, and the blood was running down my turnout coat into my boots. My boots had done that blood on one boot. So I got down, and that's when the emergency unit came.
Yeah, it took me forever, and just, speaking to different people about the incident, and finally the name was brought up, And Huey Brown was the guy, you know, really jeopardized his own well-being, you know, for you. And I think anybody that's been on the job, and especially in a metropolitan department, can appreciate that. You know, it's not something that you talk about or throw the kids at yourself, but I think everybody can relate to doing that.
Right.
You know, or hopefully so.
Very brave, I tell you, that, I don't know how, you know, what thinking goes behind it. I think it's more or less it's just an immediate reaction to something that, you know, you have. You know, it's called fight or flight, I guess. You know, you're either gonna run away from it or you're gonna go to it.
I think the decisions that, you know, how you're going to react in that situation are not made at that time.
Right.
Those decisions were made 20 years ago if you took your oath seriously, and I think that's a mindset. You're not going to teach that to someone that doesn't possess it. You know, fortunately, we have people like that.
Yeah.
So this is where I thought this was really interesting. You get loaded into the emergency unit, the New Orleans Fire Department emergency unit, which was out of Central Station at the time, the ambulance at the time, and you are loaded in there with someone else. You're having to share a ride. So tell us about that part.
Well, right before I was shot, the emergency unit, the flying squad was on the way to the fire, and they had an accident, and they got flipped over on the side, and the captain got hurt, and the emergency unit went to them first, because I was in the process of being at the time shot. But the emergency unit went and got him, and when they put him in the ambulance, when they put him in the little ambulance, they forgot to lock his stretcher in. So he was pinballing around the emergency unit on the way to me. And he was like 6'2". This guy was a monster, man. And I worked with him a lot. And
do you recall his name?
Not offhand, but it'll hit me when I'm on the way home in the truck or something. Yeah. But when they got to me, they grabbed me, threw the men in, and they didn't lock me in either. So we only had to go about 2 blocks to Charity Hospital, because we'd probably been more beat up from the ride.
Bumper cars, the demolition derby.
I was hitting him, he was hitting me, as bad as I was hurt. I was howling at him, and he was howling at me. I had my foot out so he wouldn't hit me, and I was trying to put my foot between the two. Oh, it was a mess.
You gotta find humor in that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, I think about that all the time, and
There's some of the most colorful, funny people that I've ever worked with, and some of the humor that was dropped in the heat of the moment. It told you a lot about the caliber of people. I'm fortunate to work among. You know, somebody that can make light of a situation in that awful circumstance.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? That's the only thing that propels you through that sort of thing. And looking back on it, you know, what a blessing that was.
it's kind of keep you over a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I tell you, when I got to that hospital, I was hurting more. I mean, it started being serious, you know. A burning, it's like, it was just a burning thing. What had happened, the doctor had told me that, the doctor that took care of me, Jay McClanahan, he was a last year resident. He was in his last year, he was going in private practice. And he was a Vietnam medic. And he told me—
What better man for the job?
That's exactly what he told me. He says, you got the right guy. I said, what do you mean? He says, I saw so many of these blasts, they call it a blast injury, where it doesn't hit you solid, it hits you, but then it rips everything out. And that's exactly what it does, it rips on mine. He said, they're much more painful than being a bullet passing through you. Right, he said, because all the nerve endings are exposed. He said, that's why you have so much pain. And what it feels like is if you lit a stove and you stuck your arm over it like that until it started burning you real bad, that's close to that's about what it is. And you know, to have that, and you're squirming constantly, you can't be comfortable, you're just burning. And then the morphine only lasts 3 hours. You can't get it. It don't last 3 hours, it only lasts about 20 minutes to an hour. And then you gotta wait 3 hours to get that next dose. So you're moaning for painkiller the whole time. You know? And they had, I was in I think we were in the 3rd floor, which was called the nut ward at Charity. They put us on the 3rd floor. They had the right guys, believe me, they had the right guys. They had me, They had 3 policemen. Okay, one was shot in the right shoulder. He had a wound you wouldn't believe. I mean, it was unbelievable. That bullet just tore him up. The other guy was shot in the face. Charlie Warren. He got hit. He had a gas mask on. He looked from behind the building like that. The first time he saw him, and he saw the guy, and he looked back out to get another shot. The guy saw him, was waiting for him, and he come back out. The bullet went through, took out his jaw, part of his jaw and everything. And then the other guy got shot across the back, crossways, missed his spine by 1 centimeter.
Good God.
I mean, we were mourning, a lot of mourning going on in that room here.
I believe it.
And they turned the lights out that night because they had bullets flying everywhere. They had bullets coming in, windows and everything else. So they moved, they turned all the lights out, you know. I went in, I was probably, it was 11:15 when we got there. It was probably about near noon or a little after noon when I got into that hospital. And I laid on a gurney in the hallway because I was one of the first ones in. And they never had a lot of guys yet, people yet. And then they started coming in, and then all of a sudden the people that were attending to me were breaking off. So they were kind of leaving everybody alone. And they left quietly with me. I really got nasty with them because I was in so much pain. I grabbed him by the coat and I pulled him down. And I said, if you don't give me something for the pain, I'm going to kill you. That's exactly what I told him. He looked at me, he turned white as a sheet, man. You know, I mean, he left and he came back and he said, he stood back and he said, they won't give you any because they don't know the extent of your injury. But he wouldn't come close.
It's fine.
I felt so bad for that boy. I apologized to him afterwards. Everything was over.
I'm sure he could appreciate the
Yeah, I think-
totality of
I
circumstance.
think he knew that I was in pain.
Yeah, you weren't doing it for attention or for,
No, I was serious, believe me. I was serious.
I'll believe it under those circumstances.
And, you know, and then what they did was they tried to triage everybody, you know, to see what your wounds were and everything. So they brought me into, I remember going into an operator room, I guess it was. Hit the big old, remember the old time round lights? The big ones, man.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff was going on. I was I was like I was a flying saucer, you know, I mean, man, I'm just laying there, I'm in such pain. Then they stripping me down so they can check, you know, I had blood everywhere, down my chest. So they got everything up, I'm laying on a stainless steel table, nothing on, I'm freezing, I'm hurting. And then guess what happens? Father Rogers walks in and gives me the last rites of the church. And I went, boop. I like it. Too much.
Yeah.
And then I woke up 7:30 that 8 o'clock that night in the bed in the hospital, alone in a sling and stuff like that.
For those that don't know, Father Peter Rogers was the Catholic chaplain for New Orleans Fire Department for quite a long time. He's also the author of the book Tragedy is My Parish. It's a wonderful book. It's available on eBay. It's no longer in print, but it's also available in ebook form for anybody that wants to read it. And it covers this incident, covers a lot of significant historical events in New Orleans, both as a chaplain for the police department and the fire department, as well as Our Lady of Guadalupe Parish, was that, on Grand Park. If you get a chance, take a look at that. It's definitely worth reading. It's relatively short.
Super nice guy.
So Father Rogers attended to you. How long were you hospitalized, and at what point did you, was the decision made that you lost your arm? Did they try to save it, or did they try to save it at that point, or was it immediately?
Well, the thing was, I had 2 doctors. The first one was, he wasn't as good as the first one that grabbed me, but the one that ended up with me was McClellan. But the other guy, he had all kind of wild things he wanted to do. He wanted to take my big toe and use it for a thumb after I lost my thumb. Well, here's what happened. I'm in the hospital, okay, and I'm going through debridement surgery. What that does, it takes out dead tissue, and then they only do so much every so often. So I did that, I think about 7 of them, 6 or 7. In that, and then you come out in and out. And then, in the meantime, you know, you're going through other things. Well, I had my family that came there after about, I think it was about 2 weeks. My brother-in-law was there, my wife, my kid. I'm laying there, and I'm in a cast this time, you know. And my mom's hanging like this and looking at him like, like that. And I'm looking at my brother and his older brother, and his face is, he's got this look on his face. And I'm looking at him, he says, brother, he says, your cancer turned red. I was like, what? I looked at it. This whole thing was blood. One of my two arteries that was severed, they repaired them, but one of them broke. But I'm laying in bed. So then all of a sudden I started feeling that pressure drop. I could feel it again, so they got the doctor right away. They were all involved by that time. And they got me back in there, and then they got it. Well, I ended up losing that artery, so I only had one artery going in there, But that was one time I was come close. It would have been curtains if they wouldn't have, if my family wouldn't have been there and I'd been sleeping that night, I guarantee I wouldn't have made it. It just so happens they were there, I wouldn't have had it.
9 lives, man.
That was 2 of them right there. I got 7 more, man.
Good God. Good God. So, from there, how long were you hospitalized for that?
I stayed in 6 weeks, 2 days, and about 3 hours.
Okay. Yeah, but who's keeping track?
Who's keeping track?
So from there, you go home. Obviously, you didn't return to duty in that point or anything, and you were on sick leave at that time.
Right.
Okay. Right. If there was ever an on-duty injury, I think that qualifies as it. So
clear and to the point.
Yeah, certainly a case for the 365.
I gotta say, now, Chief McCrossin, and they treated me, I couldn't have asked for better treatment, okay? He called me to his office after I was ambulatory and everything. And we sat down and had a good talk, and he said, look, I'm gonna tell you, nothing like this has ever happened before. He said, and whatever, and so he looked at me right in the face and said, whatever you wanna do, you can do it. If you wanna retire, retire. If you wanna work, I'll give you a job as the public information officer. And he said, but think about it and let me know what you want to do. He said, you want to run your sick time? Run your sick time. I had 2 years. I had 1 year of annual leave, and I had 2 years of, I had 1 year of annual leave, and I had 1.5 years of the, they give you that a year when you come on the job, when I came on the job.
So Chief McCrossin offers you...
Yeah, and I told him, I said, look, Chief, I said, I enjoy the action part of the job. I don't think I could sit behind a desk. I can't run it.
Especially headquarters.
And knowing everybody, So I said, he said, well, just think about it. So I went home and I talked to my wife about it. And, it's my decision to make it. So I decided to just try to go out and, be alone.
Sure.
But, that's something that you never know what's going to happen. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I was fortunate enough to be around Chief Willie McCrossin as a child here and there at different events and Irish Channel, marching band, and things like that. And one of the things, he was curator of the museum for a while. And I was trying and everyone to get on the fire department at that time. Used to stop by and pick his brain. I'm lucky to have had the chance to speak to him and meet with him, and he certainly put his life into it.
He was all fire. He was all for his men. He wasn't political. He was all for his men. A lot of guys didn't like him. I got bored by him. Okay. Yeah, I got bored. We were coming back from training school, was coming back from training school. Also, I was in charge of truck at the time. I was assigned to truck. We were coming back, we were on Narrow Street approaching, I'm outside, we're on truck 4. They were in Central Station. I was coming back, and it was like 100 degrees. We had the motorcycle helmets on, and the guy in the back was hot, and it was hot. He says, I'm sweating, I can barely see. He said, I'm coming to put the chair down, the flags up, and then I said, look, we're only 4 blocks. Just take it off. You never take off the equipment. That was my fault. So he takes it off. Who comes around the corner?
Yeah.
The chief's call. Oh,
yeah.
And then the radio blasted. Who's in charge of truck 4?
Yeah.
And I picked it up, Captain, Lieutenant Ursin, report to Louis Cooley on, that's his grandson. He says, report to your captain, because he was there at the time. So I report, Louis and I were like this. Louis almost cried. He said, man, I got bored. I said, hey, Louis, you gotta do what you gotta do, man. You know, so I really shouldn't have did it, but I really couldn't see that guy's being under that kind of stress.
Sure.
You know, I said, if we'd gotten to wreck, then what?
Sure, yeah,
Suppose he
absolutely.
got killed, suppose I'd have got killed. And then what? You know, he said, well, I said, I did. But look, I got guilty with a rubber man, you know how that goes.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything that serious.
You certainly weren't the first for kangaroo court to ascend the golden stairwell to headquarters, you know?
Get all
Be the
look,
last.
get the looks, huh?
Sure,
The look.
exactly. Yeah, that's great.
But I paid Louis back. I told him, one day, this is a quick one for you.
Sure.
One day we had a big cover up over the river. Okay, they had a big fire at the Mississippi River, and they had a lot of engines over there. So they told us, go over and cover, I forget the company, but go over.
Ladder 6 used to be a...
Might have been, I was on engine 16 at the time, I was a lieutenant, I was an operator on engine 16. Well, I had a big little Order of France with the flat front. It was about 8.5 feet
The
wide.
road windshield.
Right, it had the little glass in the bottom.
Yeah.
We coming, that thing was governed at about 50 miles an hour, you couldn't go over 50. So we're coming down the Greater New Orleans Bridge, going the other way, I was doing about 80, because I mean, you know, the downhill, you know. And, man, we were rolling, and we're coming to the boots. You know, boots are only like 9.5 feet wide, the pump's 8.5 feet wide. So Louis was sitting all the way on the other side by the door, he's got his arm out the window. And he looked over at me and said, you gonna slow this thing down? I said, Louis, I'm sorry, but I have no way to slow it down. I'm not gonna burn. Well, we went through those gates. The windows must have missed about 6 inches because you had an extended glass, look at that.
Sure.
Next thing I saw, he was sitting next to me when we went through. He went from that side of the pump to right here and he goes, I'm gonna kill you.
I would love to know, you may even know this, who it was. Someone was sent when the bridge was, instead of 2 separate bridges, that one bridge with 2 directions of travel on the same bridge. No divider, no nothing. Somebody made like an unannounced U-turn on one of the trucks. And I want to say it was Tony Marino was telling me about it. Basically didn't tell the tillerman, just kind of whipped the tillerman on that thing. Tillerman wanted to kill him when they got back to quarters and went to blows, you know. I can certainly understand it, you know, sitting up there perched that high and whipping him that hard, man, could have gone off the bridge.
Man, look, there was no seatbelt on them things, man. That wheel was that big, the wheel was huge, man. It's like he could hold on.
Yeah.
It's like a slingshot.
Absolutely. Pop the whip on roller skates or whatever.
Right. Well, we used to ride down, like, you know, when you wanted to make a turn before you got to it, the tillman used to pull out a little bit to keep the traffic from passing you.
Sure.
And man, we get more horn, you know, you get more people
Right,
blowing their
right.
horns at you and screaming, you know, screaming at you and other things, you know. But you gotta do it, you know.
Can we do a close-up here of the nozzle to show that camera here? FD 1084, whoever that was, I'm
I think that
assuming that was
truck
engine
four's nozzle.
16.
Somebody had
Okay.
told me that was truck four's nozzle, but look, those nozzles made the gamut, went through whoever.
Sure.
You know, if you needed a nozzle and happened to be available, they would grab it for you. It was not assigned to any trucks. Some of them had the engine stamped on it.
Right.
But,
It's a company, I don't know if they're still in existence, Robotan. You should have been doing product endorsements for them, man. This would have made a hell of a commercial for them. Our nozzles will stop a 44 mag.
this nozzle was probably 40 years old when we used it, you know. It was something else, you know. Yeah.
Well, Lieutenant, I sure appreciate you taking the time to do this and ensuring that history doesn't get rewritten in, you know, in the person's own words. And you guys, everybody familiar now, Captain Hook Charter Company out of Shell Beach, Louisiana. I don't think there was ever a more appropriate name for a business.
Might as well use it.
I haven't heard, exactly.
Might as
You
well
certainly
use it.
paid the dues for
Yeah,
that.
you might as well use it. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
appreciate it, Paul, thank you.
Attention all companies. All companies that are on the scene of New Orleans history and valor, we'd like to thank you for handling your role on Iron Men and Women Matters. This YouTube channel has been dedicated to all of those that have lost their lives in the line of duty, and for everyone under the supervision of the fire department. We continue to bless, we continue to watch. Remember, safety first.